I am Nahid Kabbani, and this is the Lighthouse for today's viewers. Welcome to our show. Today we are here with different topic to keep an eye on family justice. Let's welcome our guest and then we will go to the story. Welcome to our show.
Thank you very much.
Will you please introduce yourself to our viewers?
Yes, I'd be happy to. I'm Tamer Sukkari, and I am an adjunct professor of political science at 4 community colleges in the Sacramento area, and I'm also the father of 2 lovely girls, ages 11 and 5.
Thank you. So you have a story. Introduce the story the way let's our viewers understand it from the beginning. Who you are, what is your problem?
Sure. Basically, as I said earlier, I'm the father of 2 girls, and I had been, my 2 girls were from my previous marriages, and this last time around, I met a lady through a volunteer matchmaker in the Muslim community. I met a Lebanese lady originally who came to me via Canada, and we met in 2012, and it was a courtship for about 6 months or so. And then after she had a green card in Canada, and when I proposed to her and we ultimately got married, I then hired an immigration law attorney, and we adjusted her legal status here in the United States so that she could have a temporary 2-year green card that expired in March of this year. Unfortunately, the marriage didn't work out between the 2 of us, and after she left the house, she essentially falsely accused me of domestic violence in order to obtain her permanent green card, and also, to sort of get even for my decision to divorce her, and I think also to get a leg up in divorce proceedings. And so right now I'm seeking justice, and I actually have an appeal, and I'm raising funds for this appeal, and right now we're in the appellate mediation program. So that's the story. But we don't have any children together. My last ex-wife and I, my 2 daughters are from my previous marriages, and fortunately I get along very well with the mothers.
How long you have been married?
The last marriage lasted 21 months. Yeah.
Okay. Usually the problems comes when different culture, different background.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes Arab guy married American woman at the different way, mm-hmm. with rules and kind of rights, mm-hmm. for Middle Eastern husband, mm-hmm. to the wife make clash and things. But this marriage is between you and your wife, the same culture, yes. Same religion, same background.
Yes, we have similar backgrounds, although I was born and raised here in the United States and educated here, and I've been here most of my life.
So
but my background...
You are almost American, not Arab.
Oh, I'm a natural-born U.S. citizen.
As rules.
Yes.
You didn't take the from the Arab world as a man, because usually always complain about the Arab men. Mm-hmm. That mean they are tough little bit. They are mm-hmm. not polite. They are mm-hmm. They find all the excuses to put it on the Arab man because they look like in the media.
Yes.
But for you, you born here.
Yes.
But you still Arab.
Background.
She uses you as an Arab guy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So.
She used that against me. Absolutely. Uh-huh. Yeah. My ethnic background and my religion. Yes. Uh-huh.
So you're born here, again, to clear it up for our viewers. Mm-hmm. You're born here. You are American citizen by all means, not Arab guy.
No.
And you are not tough enough to do like the Arab guy described always. I don't see big mustache. Okay. Okay. So that's my confusion usually.
Yes.
Actually, because you have the same culture, you have the same background, understanding each other, and no kids in between, make it easy to maybe divorce. So where is the point to make it a big issue as divorce?
Well, I didn't, of course, expect any of this. We separated in August of last year, and unbeknownst to me, after she left the house, she went out and built up this case against me of falsely accusing me of domestic violence. I never had any dealings with law enforcement or anything like that. And it's interesting because Child Protective Services, or CPS, as it's often known, they came out to my house the day that my ex-wife and I separated. Because I have children in the home. My oldest daughter is with me 50% of the time, and my youngest daughter, I have her every other weekend, and if there's a fifth weekend in the month, she's with me as well. So we do have, my daughters are with me and very much part of my life, and I'm, co-parenting them successfully with their mothers. And so they came out to the home, 2 female CPS investigators on 2 different occasions. And they spoke to my ex-wife, they spoke to myself, and they spoke to both of my daughters. And so they did a complete investigation, and they found that all of the allegations of domestic violence against me were unfounded and false. And not only did they write a letter to that effect, but they also went to court and testified to that effect. However, unfortunately, the commissioner chose not to give any weight to their testimony because of his dealings with them 20 years previously. He basically doesn't like CPS emergency workers interviewing children in the presence of parents. And when they interviewed my oldest daughter, myself and my ex-wife were seated 10 feet behind my oldest daughter. And of course, the CPS workers showed up unannounced. I didn't have any time to plan anything. And she spoke to me briefly and she said, "Get your daughter." I called her down. She came right down. She didn't even see me the whole time that she was being questioned, nor did I interfere with the questioning in any way. And I've had some dealings with CPS previously, and usually if they have a problem with the parent being present, they will ask the parent to leave. And in this case, they never asked me to leave, and I was fully cooperative. And as I said, they came to court and testified to that effect. And so.
Can I ask you, the ex-wife, what is her nationality or background?
Sure. Yeah, she's Lebanese originally.
Also, the mother of your kids.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So my first wife is Mexican American, and she was born and raised here. And then my second wife, she's Egyptian American. She's been here most of her life. And then this last one, and final one, by the way, Nahid, you have this on camera now.
You learn
Oh yeah, was Lebanese originally, and she came to me from Canada.
I mean, you get along with the Mexican American woman. She has your kids, and you are now together taking care of the kids.
Yes, absolutely.
And everything is okay.
Absolutely,
Nothing
yeah.
wrong.
She's a very nice lady, and she's an excellent mother. And in fact, she wrote a letter on my behalf to the judge during our trial. And we've been co-parenting successfully our daughter, my oldest daughter, together for many years. And I also get along very well with my youngest daughter's mother.
That's what
now.
it should be. You are the father, she is the mother for those kids. They came to the world through you. They should be happy together also.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
the
Sometimes it takes a little time to get to that point, but it's the best thing for the kids, no doubt.
Yeah, we have to deal with our issues as parents.
Yes.
For the sake of the kids,
Absolutely.
for the love of the kids also.
Absolutely.
If you love your kids, you have to take care of those things. But for the other marriage, even she is from closer to your culture, you didn't get along, and there is no kids, no nothing, and she created this problem.
Yes, well, we got along initially. We got along fine in the beginning. Things changed after we got married, and particularly after she obtained her Canadian citizenship.
Oh, she become
she's
more, self, whatever. She becomes stronger with the citizenship.
Yes, she spent the
She
first.
doesn't need you anymore.
I think that this was planned. I really do believe that this was planned out. Like we can talk about the possible marriage immigration fraud, but she spent the first year of our marriage basically studying and preparing for the Canadian citizenship test. She flew back to Canada 4 times during our marriage. And then the last time was to take her citizenship oath, which she did. And like I said, about a year after we married, she got her Canadian citizenship. She came back and unfortunately, the verbal abuse, not only toward me, but in front of my daughters and about the mothers of my daughters, really worsened at that time. And so I tried to, as much as possible, save the marriage. I'd already been through divorces before. I didn't want to go through it. It's really,
And you were the banker? You were spending money on her to go that far and come back?
I supported her fully financially on everything except for those 3 or 4 trips she took back to Canada while we were married, because that was something she was doing on her own. She wanted her own Canadian citizenship. She said she wanted to bring her son. She was previously married as well, and she has a son in Lebanon, and she wanted to bring him over to Canada for educational purposes. So that was something she and her family helped her with that.
Okay.
But everything else I paid for, and she didn't work the whole time we were married.
And where are you now to start talking about it after the break? Now, what is the situation?
So right now, we're divorced. Thankfully, that chapter is behind us. And right now, we have an appeal. And so I'm raising funds for this appeal. And basically, I'm appealing a 5-year domestic violence restraining order that was ordered against me by a very controversial local commissioner. And we can talk about that if you like after the break.
After the break.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So it's a story I couldn't understand it actually, just because, as I mentioned, cultural-wise, if they are close to the culture, they understand each other easier than if they are in different culture. But let's have a break and understand the point after the break.
Watching The Lighthouse for today's viewers, brought to you by oneworldforyou.org.
Okay, welcome back. So, what is the procedure for the appeal? What happened to have the appeal?
Yeah, sure. So after my ex-wife left the house, she went to some local organizations that help battered women and built up this case of domestic violence and abuse against me. One of them is Weave, and the other one is My Sister's House, which happens to aid battered Asian women. And I was never served with the legal documents. I found out about this lawsuit against me in Sacramento County through a legal aid company that had sent me a letter informing me there was a lawsuit against me in Sacramento County. So naturally I was concerned, and I called down to the court, and they said, you have a court hearing on Wednesday. And of course I had no idea about all of this. So I went down on Tuesday afternoon, and the clerk at the family court, showed me the paperwork. I want to emphasize that there were never any criminal charges. All of this occurred in a family court, so there was never any criminal conviction or anything like that. So I went down there, they showed me the paperwork, and I saw that she was requesting a 5-year domestic violence restraining order against me, and she wanted the house and the car and all sorts of things.
Oh, you become a different person.
Yeah. So I went to court the next day, and I told the judge that that I'd never been served the paperwork, and that basically I'm completely innocent of all these charges. These are false allegations. And the judge, in fact, asked me, he said, how do you know that they're false? And I said, well, your clerk was kind enough to show me the paperwork yesterday, and I can assure you they're false. And so eventually he said, yeah, he has a right to defend himself, so he set it for trial. And so I ended up then having to subsequently hire a family law attorney, and we went to trial. And this trial took place, and it was presided over by a highly controversial local commissioner. He's a court commissioner. He's been a family court judge for many years, and then he retired a few years ago, and they brought him back as a court commissioner. And so our trial lasted for 3 days. It was about a 6-hour total trial. My ex-wife testified for almost 5 hours, and I got 20 minutes to testify. The CPS emergency worker testified on my behalf. The 2 police officers actually came and testified on my behalf. She went to the police 4 days after she left the house. So I never had any dealings with the police. Anyway, at the end of the trial, the judge basically, the commissioner, ordered a 5-year domestic violence restraining order against me after he decided he wasn't going to give any weight to the testimony from CPS investigators. And mind you, they were the only ones who investigated these allegations. And this is a government neutral, third party that came in and investigated and spoke to everyone. So he also ordered me to take a 52-week domestic violence batter intervention course where I have to attend every week for a couple of hours, and I pay $45 per week for a full year for a crime that I didn't even commit. And so, I basically wrote a letter of complaint to the California Commission on Judicial Performance, and I asked them to look into the matter and to perhaps even take disciplinary actions against the commissioner, because not only did he abuse his discretion by not giving any weight to the only ones who actually came out and investigated these allegations, and again, this is a government agency that actually tends to err on the side of caution. If they had any concerns that there was actual abuse taking place in the home, particularly given the fact that I have children in the home, or that there are children in the home, then they probably would have found that there's something to the allegations, but in fact they found that all of the allegations were unfounded and came to court and testified to that effect. So basically we had the trial, and so I decided to, I was basically forced to file for an appeal in order to get justice. And mind you, I spent over $10,000 of my hard-earned money and savings to defend myself against these false allegations. And so
your reputation, your job, your face in the community, or front
Yes.
of your students and things, all things change.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
not an easy
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
talk.
I sent a letter to the local court because he's a commissioner. I couldn't send it directly to the Commissioner on Judicial Performance with the complaint. It's a one-page complaint. And I mentioned that during the trial, the judge shifted the burden of proof onto me to prove that this all came down to a bruise on her left shin that she took a picture of 6 days after she left the house. That's actually, she took the picture on a cell phone. So as you know, when you take pictures on cell phones, there's generally the date and the time on there. So it's very clear. And this also came out in the trial transcript. But she claims that I gave her this bruise through abusive physical contact 2 weeks prior. So, and of course it's interesting because the color of the bruise was still purple or blue. So that raises some questions, but nonetheless, the commissioner decided to give no weight to the CPS testimony when I had ordered the restraining order against me and ordered me to take this class, essentially robbing me of my liberties without any sort of due process or without equal protection of the law and our constitutional rights. So I sent the letter to the local court. 2.5 months later, I got a response back basically saying that the commissioner found my ex-wife to be credible, and he actually also mentioned an old file that my second wife had made a claim after we were divorced of abuse, and so therefore there's a past history of this, which is interesting because this was hearsay. There was never any adjudication, never a court hearing. It was just a document that she submitted while we were going through the divorce process, and we were in the middle of a custody battle, and no one took it seriously. There was never police reports or anything, and the commissioner had no business using that and making this ruling in this particular case in front of him. And it's interesting how he claimed that I had a past history of abuse, when in fact, all I had was a past history of people making false allegations, and he's the one with actually the past history, and I want to talk about that. In 2001, this commissioner has a criminal conviction for illegally chopping down trees in his neighborhood so that he could have a better view of his in his neighborhood, and he was subsequently publicly admonished for that by the Commission on Judicial Performance, which is the state watchdog agency that's supposed to provide accountability and oversight to the judges in the state. And then subsequently in 2010, this same commissioner was publicly censured for his handling of the Ulf Carlson case, divorce case. And a censure, by the way, is as close as you can get to being actually removed from office. Yet he retired and they brought him back as a commissioner. This is not slander, Nahid. This is all facts. Anyone who wants to go online can research all of this. I would never say anything that is not the actual truth. So feel free to look this up. You can Google all of this information. It's there. And so this is a commissioner with a long past history of misconduct and in some cases bias as well. And unfortunately, he's still serving on the bench, destroying people's lives, robbing them of their liberties without any kind of due process. And so I'm fighting for justice for myself and for my daughters. My daughters are heavily impacted by all of this. Anything that negatively impacts my finances is going to have a negative impact on my daughters.
Yes.
And my oldest daughter in particular, she can't understand the injustice of all of this because she said, Daddy, the investigator came, I told them the truth, and why is this commissioner going and doing something else? And believing all of these false allegations. And she's really having a hard time getting her mind around this. So anyway, as far as the complaint to the CJP, I then sent it to the CJP. I took the response of the local court and I sent it on to the CJP and asked them to investigate the way this judge handled the trial. And I got back a few days later a letter basically saying that they were going to take no actions at all in this particular matter with no explanation. So then I called my state senator's office and asked them, why can't I get some kind of just a brief explanation as to why they chose not to take any action, with disciplinary actions with respect to my complaint. And my state senator's office told me that they're not subject to the Brown Act, the California Public Records Act, or the Freedom of Information Act requests. So basically, I was like, wow, why is the state government agency acting so secretively? So I wrote an op-ed piece which was published in the Contra Costa Times and also in the Daily Journal, the Los Angeles and San Francisco Daily Journals, which are the largest legal newspapers in the state. Basically going over the CJP and how they're not really serving the public as they're supposed to be. And then on top of that, I filed for this appeal. And so I had to borrow $5,000 from a friend, an American local professional who heard my story. He felt sorry for me, so he gave me an interest-free loan so that I could pay the retainer for the attorney. And then I set up a GoFundMe page so that I can help raise the funds to basically support this appeal.
What a waste of money and time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And image also,
yes.
The most important thing in the image for the kids also, their father going to court for something like this.
Yeah.
Let's have a break and continue to find out what you are looking for.
Sure.
We'll have a break and have an eye on the family justice.
OneWorldForYou.org, promoting cultural understanding through the media.
Let's continue find out what's going on with our guest, Tamer.
Right now, we have the appeal before the 3rd District Court of Appeals. Through this loan, I was able to hire a local appellant attorney. Appeals are a very kind of specialized area of the law, and appeals are very expensive and they're time-consuming. And it's also very difficult to win. It's kind of a long shot with an appeal. You have to really prove that the judge, in the way that they handled the trial, there was legal errors, procedural errors in the way the trial was handled. Now, I have a fairly good appellant attorney locally here, and he thinks we have a pretty solid case given the fact that this judge abused his discretion by giving no weight at all to the CPS testimony. One of the things that was mentioned was that I somehow abused my ex-wife right there in front of the CPS emergency worker. So even if what the commissioner's position was correct, even if he's correct in saying that they shouldn't be interviewing children in the presence of parents, he should at least take into consideration that testimony, which is basically where that's all in the transcript. The CPS worker said, no, he never touched her at all in front of us or otherwise. So we are in the appellant mediation program right now. My appellant attorney suggested mediation because that would be less expensive and less time-consuming for both parties. We were hoping we could reach some kind of deal whereby she could get her green card, her permanent green card, if she hasn't obtained it already, and I would have this restraining order removed from my record. The biggest issue with the restraining order for me is it's not that I can't so much own a gun. I don't own a gun myself or necessarily have a desire to. But it's basically that this is on my record so that it would come up in background investigations. And I'm an adjunct professor, and so I support both of my daughters on my income as a part-time professor. Part-time is my title, but I teach more classes than most full-timers. It's just instead of on one campus, I'm on 4 different campuses. And so I had to borrow the money for the appeal, and so we're in the mediation program, and basically, unfortunately, it doesn't seem that the other party wants to negotiate or compromise in any way, so I have no choice but to take this appeal all the way. And so right now I'm raising the funds to do that. I have a GoFundMe page where your viewers can go to www.gofundme.com/Justice Matters, and they can watch a little brief video there of my story and contribute and share it. And I think the best ways to help at this point for me, I would be grateful if your viewers could share the GoFundMe link, and I also have a Facebook page called Help Tamir Get Justice. My first name is spelled Tamir. I'm sure that'll be on the screen. And viewers can go like the Facebook page and most importantly share the GoFundMe link, which doesn't cost anything. And if they could contribute a few dollars, I would be most grateful, in helping me defray the cost to basically try to clear my name. As I said, CPS cleared me of any wrongdoing at all. And so I'm committed to trying to get justice, and not just for my own case, but also for all sorts of victims of the family courts. This has been a tremendous experience for me. I mean, I teach political science courses, and I teach about the Constitution. I teach American government courses, and I was just amazed at everything I've experienced about our quote-unquote justice system, and how family courts are extra constitutional. They're not courts of law, they're courts of equity, and how the commissioners and judges have so much power and often abuse their discretion in a family court setting. And it's families and individuals and communities and the society as a whole that suffer from these injustices doled out by the family court system. And unfortunately, there's not real, right now as it stands, checks or oversight or accountability even for the judges and their behavior and their misconduct. And no one wants to talk about it. So I've decided to fight this battle in a very public way. I have nothing to hide. I welcome people to question me, to investigate. And I'm hoping that we can get more media coverage, and I want to thank you for having me on your show. I'm willing to talk to anyone, and so if people have media contacts locally or even nationally, I'm happy to talk to them about these family court issues of accountability and oversight, and ultimately justice for ourselves and our children.
Mm-hmm. It's important to have the justice department out of any kind of not straightforward and not doing the right thing.
Yes.
Also count on, you are talking about families.
Yes.
Not walls or stones. Families building up lives for kids, and it should be the right decision, and with justice and with love, with care about this kind of business. You are talking about families.
Absolutely.
And families build up family, not divide families, not hate father and kids and things. Is there any other thing we can do to help, like sign a letter or send a note, or have an opinion from viewers to read or to think about it and send something to the Justice Department or something?
Well, I would invite your viewers to contact me. I'm actually have now joined a group of people who are working on family law reform issues. Unfortunately, our family court system is broken, and it's heavily driven by money, unfortunately, rather than really truly the best interest of our children.
What else? Not working with money, and big money will control the thing. What else around us? Everything controlled by money. And I hate to see it this way or say it this way too.
As do I. Yeah, it's the judges, the attorneys, the mediators, the people who are teaching these courses on domestic violence and anger management and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, all of these people involved in the family court system are really profiting or benefiting off of the misery of other people who are either going through a divorce or splitting up, and it's I don't think that many people really understand or get it until they go through it themselves.
Yes.
And I often say to people, I would actually have more rights if this had been conducted if the trial had been conducted in a criminal court setting. At least I would have had the right to due process. I would have had the right to a jury trial by my peers. Rather, it was a bench trial, one person acting as judge, jury, and executioner. And that person could be biased. They could have a long past history of misconduct and rob you of your liberties without any sort of due process, without equal protection, 14th Amendment. This is not only in the national Constitution, this is in our California Constitution, these basic rights. And so I'm not only fighting for myself and my case, but for all of the victims of the family court system and people who are not in a financial or emotional position right now to actually fight this battle. And so I really would be grateful if people could contact me and help. I'll be happy to send them the op-ed that I've written, and I plan to write more op-eds and continue to speak out about these issues.
We'll talk to our viewers. It's funny, not really funny. It's sad to say you are teaching those things to the students, and now you are facing
Yes.
the system, what you are teaching.
Yes, exactly.
To prove it, is it
it's
right or wrong? It
Wait,
becomes you are teaching something wrong.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Nahid, because this whole experience has changed the way I teach my classes. If you talk to any of my former students, they will tell you I'm known for being very positive and uplifting and trying to have Americans feel good about their own sense of government, their own government, and that they can make a difference, make a positive difference. And I'm always trying to fight that prevailing kind of cynicism and distrust of government and politics, as you heard from your last speaker, that many Americans have about the government and politicians. And now that I've gone through all of this, it's changed my teaching completely. It's not that I'm negative in any way, but I'm realistic when it comes to issues like civil liberties, when it comes to issues like the Constitution and the judicial branch of government, and that there is corruption that exists, and we need to speak out, all of us, and fight up against it. And the only way we can do this is through there's strength in numbers. We all have to educate first, and then work and take positive actions to fight against this kind of corruption that exists and this kind of tyranny. This is our country. This is the place where we're raising our children, and we have to speak out against these issues.
I really absolutely agree with you. Thank you anyway for explaining the situation, and for sure a lot of people pass through those things since the system is there doing that, not just one person. Or hopefully my viewers will take care of what they can do at least. And thank you for coming. On behalf of my viewers, I thank you for sharing your personal issue. And we as media, we shed some light about issues close to us and in community. Sometimes we don't see it every day, but it's good to know about those things. Thank you for coming, and we'll do our best.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
For you, my viewers, I hope that we can do something. It's really an eye on this justice for family, and we should think about how we can help either our guest or the idea to give away for the system to be fixed if there's anything wrong going around us. Family is the foundation we need to protect, and hopefully we can help, even if letter or sharing Tamer something he can feel better about it. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.